David Locke, you can't be serious. Plus, what happens if disaster strikes in the lottery? It's all coming up on this edition of Ask LOJ Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Give you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps and on YouTube. You can follow me on socials at DLock09 if I do something you think's worth it. And you can give a 5-star review if we do something today that's worth it. Thank you so much for tuning in to the everydayers out there. I can't thank you enough. Appreciate you. You make this show what it is. You make Locked On what it is. Thank you very much. Today's show is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. Get 50% off your first year. All right. Next week, we'll do a lot of the number stuff on the draft. I'm going to dig in this weekend and try to get into that. So plan on that. If you're an NFL fan, we have incredible draft coverage all across the network today. Friday editions are Ask LOJ. That's where you ask Locked on Jazz questions. As always, they are awesome. So let's get started. David, I hope you are not serious about trading for Zion. Can't stay healthy. Not worth trading a top 5 pick for. So I'm dead serious. I totally think that if the cookie crumbles in a fashion in which you don't get the number 1 pick, you're picking at 4 or 5, your evaluation of these players is that they're just a player, and you have an opportunity. Now, this would be rich. You might have to add either side of the deal to go get a Zion Williamson, a Trae Young, a Lonzo Ball, maybe even a Ja Morant. I think you do it. And my explanation for this is that while they may have some taints to them, they are the exact talent you just lost 67 games to go get, or whatever we lost, 65. That's literally what you're doing. You're developing your own current talent while losing games to be in draft position to draft players with elite skills that are game-changing. And you're taking a massive risk that if you get that player with that skill, that there's not some problems or difficulties that come along with it. There probably are. So in the case of Zion's, it's staying healthy. In the case of Lonzo, it seems to be understanding the value of a possession. In the case of Ja, it's his shooting and all of his off-the-court stuff that seems to be real. And in the case of Trae Young, it has to do with whether his size prohibits him from being a championship-level player. But the other parts of all 4 of them are totally undeniable. I mean, Trae Young just makes you so good immediately offensively. And Zion Williamson, his defense is horrific. But when he's good offensively, it might not be equaled in the NBA. And Lonzo Ball's got a skill set that if you can corral it, oh my goodness, you would draft that 1, 2, or 3 immediately. So I'm dead serious on this. And my other theory, particularly on Lonzo Ball, Zion Williamson, and maybe even Trae Young, and maybe even Ja Morant, is if something goes wrong. If something goes wrong, you took the risk, they get hurt that year, then you just lose 67 games and do this again. You might do it anyway. I particularly like those deals at a trade deadline, frankly. And then you just don't really use them much the rest of the season. You continue with the process. Then you go add your new talent, and then you go. I might be dead wrong. Justin Zanuck and other general managers in the world might hear this right now and think I'm insane. But to me, the only thing you can get right now with an early draft pick is unbelievable talent. You just don't know the rest of it yet. But we would have died to get Zion number 1. We would have been ecstatic to get Ja number 2. We would have been through the moon to get Lonzo number 3, should have gone 2. We would have been, right? Trae Young, 5 that year? So sure, they cost more money now. They have taints, but that's all we're doing right now is trying to get that kind of talent. So I'm dead serious. What if, God forbid, we fall to 5? It's happened twice in our simulated lotteries. We're firing Tankathon today. We're going other directions for our lottery because this week we've done 2 lotteries. We finished 5th both times, which is, by the way, like a 49% chance. So God forbid, a 50% chance, a most likely case scenario is that we're going to be 5th. If you're taking an individual pick, by the way, that you're putting your money on, it's most likely 5th. Now, 1 through 4 combined is 52%, and 5th is 48%. So most likely we're going to be 1 through 4. So you're taking the field versus 5, but if you're picking a pick, 5 is most likely. So God forbid if we fall out of 5, we miss out on flag, what sort of things, if anything, can change? Now, let me quickly pivot here. Jazz Jargon had a really cool chart up on Twitter yesterday, so I grabbed it. So here is the success since 1990 through 2022 of NBA picks. And the chasm actually falls after 5. So Bub Carrington's game-winning basket for the Washington Wizards on the last night of the year might be wildly important. And if you're wondering why, you can talk about the Giannis's and the Jokic's and the Donovan Mitchells who didn't go in the top 5. But the first pick has had, since 1990, has had 98 All-NBA selections and 140 All-Star selections. I mean, let's go All-NBA. That's voted at the end of the year. It's top 15 player in the league. The number 3 pick has had 48. The number 2 pick has had 37. The number 4 pick has had 27. The number 5 pick has had 28. And then the last one is 9. The 6th pick is 9. So first pick is 98 All-NBA selections and 9 MVPs. The next 5 picks combined, by the way, have a grand total of 6 MVPs. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is a pretty interesting graphic. The average win share by pick, 66. I don't know entirely what this means either, but you get the value, right? You can understand that a larger number is more important. The first pick is 66 average win share. The second pick is 48. The third pick is 57, then 47, then 46. Then the 6th pick is 22. So a little bit of my point here, I threw this up here, is the 5th pick is still an All-NBA selection 27% of the time, is only a starter 27 to All-NBA to All-Star 30. He separated those two out. 36% of that is a starter 72% of the time. So that's, God forbid, yes, I agree, but it is the most likely, God forbid. And I do think it does change some things. This is where I think one of 2 things. If you have the 5th pick, if you get the 5th pick and you got a player, not a piece, you could pivot and go get Trae Young. And then suddenly Colin Sexton, John Collins, Lauri Markkanen might be more important as you're suddenly a veteran-laden team and you're no longer going through this process for 3 years. To me, we're in. We're in. I think this goes on for another 2 or 3 years, honestly. Outside of flag, which draft picks are the best fit for our current roster? How do I say this most politely? Most talented. I do not believe there is a concept of fit on our current roster. I actually don't really believe we have current roster. We don't have, other than Lauri, a player who's regarded as top 100 in the NBA. I think we probably have some players that are top 100 in the NBA, but the key word I had there was regarded. So, first of all, Lowry's versatile. He can play the 3, 4, or 5. So you're not drafting a player because you have Lauri. Timelines don't match anyway. And if there's a center that can play 40 minutes a night, you're drafting him over Walker. Walker's good, but he's not so good that you're not drafting a center in this draft. So I just think the player best fit is whoever the best players. We don't have that. You always talk about contending teams needing a top 5 players. Cooper Flagg, the only draftee who's potentially get that at this point. So top 5 player. So that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, Giannis, Tatum, Luka. That level, right? That's the top 5 players in the NBA. I mean, yeah, I don't know if Cooper's that, right? Like, I guess Cooper's been comped to Tatum, but top 5, woo! So yes, very unlikely that you have more than one top 5 player in a draft. Somewhat by definition, with the average good player now playing 15 years, you probably have a top 5 player once every 3 years. If we don't get the top 1 pick, can we move up? If we'd played full throttle, I think we were a top 10 team in the West. So you're trading Lauri. What are you getting? Those are all the questions that continue next on Locked on Jazz. Today's edition of Locked on Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdochs are just the great. I actually got to see Blake yesterday in all transparency. I was at the Genesis of Linden looking at cars. Looking at the electric Genesis, and Blake was there, so I got to see him. Just such a good, authentic human. Love that. Love the fact that the Murdochs are this good of people, and I get to be able to tell you about them. So let's start there with the Murdochs. Utah, 80, 90 years, family generation, passed on. COVID came, and what did Blake do? Kept all the prices, didn't jack him up, didn't want to put him on it, as he literally said to me at the time. I don't want to go to the grocery store and see somebody who I got gouged an extra $1,000 out of, or $1,500 out, because the world was crazy. Like, that's not how we live in this community. That's who the Murdochs are. And that's what they bring to the table as part of our community. If you're looking for a car right now, the Hyundais are great. I'm driving the new Santa Fe. Just drove it down to actually Linden yesterday, up through the canyon. Fabulous. Really impressive. I even turned to my wife at one point. I was like, this car's really terrific. Driving the Santa Fe, solid. Feels like real around you. Great space, good drive, really impressive, the new Santa Fe build. Palisade I had earlier, I just love. And there's the Sonata and the Elantra and the Ioniq 5. The electric car is on fire. So go check it all out at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also in Logan and Linden. If you're going to stop by, email me first so I can get you the VIP treatment you deserve as Locked On every day. Have you ever looked at your bank account and wondered, where'd all the money go? Yeah, like this week and last week. And yes. Oh, yeah. Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When you start using Monarch Money, you realize how much money you're using on little things. Mine might have been skiing, but that's okay. Or meals out. Those are my 2 bugaboos. All in one convenience, juggling multiple apps. You can use Monarch Money instead to check your finances, track spending, even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finance with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for over 50% off your first year. For 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's half off on your first year at monarchmoney.com. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. Free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as on YouTube. Thanks so much. All right, let's get back to your questions. They are awesome. We will do our new lottery draft to open the third segment. Let's see. Where were we? So, say we don't get the first pick in this year's draft. Do we have enough assets picks to swindle whoever has the pick? What would it take? I do not think there's a circumstance where somebody would trade Cooper Flagg. Unless, what would be the scenario where you trade Cooper Flagg? Giannis and an extension, maybe. Victor Wembanyama with a clear medical report on a blood clot. Jokic, and I guess Shea. Tatum? Maybe. That's literally it. Luka, he's been traded. I don't know if you know that. After watching the play, and I think the Jazz could be a top 10 team in the West next year, is that the goal to make the plan, or with the front office tank again from the top 5 pick? So I'm actually not sure. I want to be totally honest. I'm not sure I totally agree with this concept. This has been running around an awful lot. If you go back to the Vegas pre-win odds, the Portland Trailblazers were behind us in preseason wins. And I think one other team was, and we were 13th in the Vegas odds to start the year. Portland turned out to have a pretty good year. We didn't play all our guys, but we were pretty equal to Portland. Portland was 36 and 46. And I thought Portland had a really good year. The Spurs were better than we were with Victor, and then Victor didn't play the second half of the season, then they lost a bunch of games. I don't know where New Orleans sits this year. They're kind of a mess. And everyone thought Phoenix was better. Phoenix now is in NBA purgatory. We'll see how they ever get out of it. And maybe we could get to 10th, but I'm not sure I buy this. This has been our kind of thing. Every time we played a good game this year and we're semi-healthy, we were like, if we had been, not totally sure. So I would tell you that I think this is a multi-year issue. And I think we're watching Detroit do it, Houston do it, Oklahoma City do it, Memphis do it, Orlando do it, and have it work in the playoffs right now. But it's multi-year. So we did it. We've really done it for 1 year and gotten dividends out of it. You're trading Lauri. What's the lowest pick you would trade Lauri for in this year's draft? My opinion is 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 or 4, maybe 5 no. Wow. So, Lauri, gosh, I like Lauri. But, I if we traded the Lauri Markkanen and could get the 3rd, 4th, or 5th pick of an NBA draft at this point, I would be pretty pleased. So Lowry's been an all-star once. So he's a borderline all-star at his peak in his best year ever, which puts him at top 30, 40 player in the NBA. Last year he was probably in a weird situation. He was probably top 50, top 60. I think you're overvaluing. So if I were to, I think the really interesting question is, if you're trading Lauri, what are you trying to get? So the Warriors concept, in that Warriors trade that was talked about a lot, you're trying to get some young pieces and some young draft picks and get a multitude of assets. And as Justin Zanuck talks about a lot, you're trying to get more swings, right? So the Jazz, and everything the Jazz have done up to this point is to get as many swings as possible until they took the 3 first-round picks for 1 bigger swing with the Phoenix Suns. And on that pick, and the concept on that trade is, and we'll see, it's going to be a long time away, it's 2031, is that we got a bigger bat. None of the top 3 picks, the 3 picks we're trading, none of them, by definition of how they fell, could possibly have been anything better than probably the 3rd pick, which would mean that we have the 1st and 2nd already, except for the last year it's protected. I got it. But in all likelihood, it probably couldn't be better than 15 if it's the lesser of the 3 picks, right? And we traded, for the first time, we used our assets. So this is going to be interesting because it'll be a question of at some point here, do we wish we had a bunch of assets? So are you trading Lauri for a big bat, or are you trading Lauri for a bunch of swings? If you traded Lauri. And I will say this. I'm watching the playoffs, watching a bunch of teams who could really use Lauri. The Houston Rockets could really use Lauri. The Denver Nuggets could, it would be an upgrade over Michael Porter Jr., but not massive. Minnesota could really use another shooter in Lauri. Golden State could really use Lauri. Memphis is hard to tell because they're just being beat. Detroit could really use Lauri. Lauri would be great on Detroit. Great on Detroit. Orlando could really use Lauri. Lauri's really expensive, though, at this point. And remember, the Jazz can't move Lauri until 12 months after the day he signed his previous deal, which was July. I loved this question. Which of the current young players could be this year's Trey Lyles to be packaged with the 21st pick to move up in the late lottery? I think this is a really interesting question. I really like this question. So the concept here is, let's say we have a player that we see at 15 that we think is really good. 15 might not be a good example because that's going to be Oklahoma City and they aren't going to want multiple players. That's what's actually going to be tricky here. And Orlando 16 probably isn't going to want multiple players either. But let's say we have a player, just go with it, at 14, 15, 16, that's San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Orlando. Who on our roster can we put with our 21st pick that would be worth moving up those spots? Because that's what we did with Trey Lyles to get Donovan Mitchell. And maybe it's to get to Dallas at 11 or Chicago at 12. It's really an interesting question. So of our young players, Walker probably could do that. Put Walker, Kessler into a deal, not for Dallas. They have Lively and Gafford, but put Walker in a deal and you probably could do that. Probably not Portland. They have Klingon. 12 at Chicago, maybe, if Chicago's holding. Atlanta, maybe. Get a rim runner with Trae Young. So maybe. We're seeing more and more bigs. San Antonio maybe decides they want to play Walker with Victor. See more double bigs. So Walker, I think, yes. Our next best young player is probably Keyonte or Bryce. Taylor's not tradable. Cody's not tradable at this point. I don't know if those guys do it. Somebody really sees Bryce's shooting as an asset, maybe. Someone sees Keyonte as a major piece. I frankly as I said this week, I'm pretty bullish on Keyonte. I'd be nervous. But there weren't a lot of things there that told me that Keyonte was going to be a long-term starter, right? Good six-man. And if you really have a player you think is fabulous, like you did with Donovan, then if you're move a six-man, do it. Because the 21st pick has a 50% chance of being an NBA player. So if you have Walker Kessler, you have a 100% chance he can be an NBA rotation player. And you've got the 21st pick who it's got a 50% chance of being an NBA player. And you have a player at 12, 13, 14, 15 who you think is going to be the caliber of like Donovan or something like that. Yeah, you go do it. You go do it. That's the essence of where we are. We're going to have to start making mistakes, by the way. You're going to have to start making deals that are willing to be mistakes. We've played the lottery twice this week. We had the 5th pick both times. We've fired Tankathon. We have a new system. Let's see where the Jazz end up. Next, plus the remaining Ask LOJ questions. Thanks for making Locked On Jazz your first listen. All right. This was off a suggestion from a listener to switch, and it is much better. So let's go to it. It is our NBA Draft Lottery 2025, courtesy of Fanspo. Are you ready? It will be more dramatic, a little faster, slower paced. Here we go. The lottery is underway. The 14th pick goes to the Spurs from Atlanta. The 13th pick goes to Atlanta from Sacramento on schedule. The 12th pick is Chicago. 11 should be Dallas. It is. The 10th pick should be Portland. It is. The 9th pick should be Houston from Phoenix. It is. The 8th pick should be the Spurs. It is. The 7th pick should be Toronto. It isn't. Toronto moves into the top 4. New Orleans is 7th. The Hornets are 6th. Brooklyn has bumped up as well. Washington's 5th. Philadelphia's bumped up. Brooklyn is 4. The Jazz are still on the board. Number 3, the Jazz get the 3rd pick of the draft. The Raptors are 2. And the number 1 pick goes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Cooper Flagg, Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey are all together. Toronto gets Dylan Harper, and the Jazz pick 3rd. Is it Ace Bailey? Who will it be, as the Jazz will pick 3rd in the lottery for this year's draft, at least on our simulation? Much more fun. Much more fun to do it that way. We'll do that every day for you. The drama is real. The excitement overwhelming. And we'll start analyzing our 3rd picks of the draft and all the rest of it along the way. Let's see. Let's back to some other. The questions are great today. A lot of them are going to have to hold over to next year. Do we trade Lauri to the Spurs for their 2025 pick and hope we get lucky and get 2 draft picks possibly in the top 10 or better? So one, we cannot. The way you're phrasing this would be that we are trading to the Spurs now, which we cannot do unless. So we can't do that. And there's 0 chance somebody would be willing to make a trade before the lottery. Remember, Lauri can't be moved until July. So it'd have to be after the draft. What do you think of a fair trade return would be for Sexton, Collins, and Clarkson if the front office decide to move them on in the offseason? I'm at the point now where I actually don't think there's a market for Jordan. I'm just going to say that. Like, I think Jordan's great for us. He's a good leader, adds a vibe and energy, and I think that's where he is. I have not seen a team that's good in the playoffs that's looking for Jordan Clarkson in 4 years. And I just think his uniqueness just doesn't match a team making a playoff run, nor, frankly, watching the playoffs do I think he matches. It's an interesting question. Sexton and Collins are established NBA rotation players. Established. John probably is in a little bit higher regard than Colin. Size, versatility, shooting now being more consistent. So if you trade like the 17th or 18th pick for him, you're to some extent you're getting taken because it's only a 50% chance of him that player becoming an NBA player, and you just traded a guaranteed NBA player. But I also think that there is some level that's kind of what you have to do at this point. That if there's a team out there like Orlando with the 25th pick of the draft, and they need Colin Sexton, and Colin's probably not going to be with you after the end of next year. I don't know that to be true, but I'm just saying that's the hypothetical. That maybe you're willing to trade Colin for the 25th pick of the draft. That would be a hell of a deal by Orlando. They would get incredible value for the 25th pick of the draft. But if the Jazz see a young player that they think might be able to come together, I think you might have to do that. Let's say Miami at 20 decides they want John Collins to solidify their rotation. They would be fleecing us in that deal. But you might do it because, well, John has to opt in or opt out here coming up as well on that. So it's a tricky little thing. Getting value, I think you're taking undervalue at this point, and I don't think you're getting multiple. Like, you couldn't get a first-round pick for it. I don't know this for a fact. I don't believe that we could have got a first-round pick for any of them in the last trade deadline, or I think we would have done it. You also have to take back salary, so it's tricky. Who should the other front offices be calling about, Kessler or Filipowski? Oh, that's super interesting. Probably Walker's established as an NBA rotation player, and Flip's defense still leaves it to be a question, but Flip's offensive skills are real. Can Flip and Kessler start together? Would it be a duo to replace Collins and Kessler? Not to the basketball I'm watching right now. Like the basketball I'm watching right now, the physicality and the level of athleticism and the play that I'm watching every night right now in the NBA, you're not. Kyle Filipowski and Walker Kessler are not your starting front court. How do you evaluate the talent on a bad team? Specifically, I often wonder this with Keyonte. How do you evaluate how much of his struggles come from being on a bad team in general? Or the other side, right? The other side is how much does a player look good because they're on a bad team? So let's take former Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma is a 12-point-a-game player, 13-point-a-game player on a Laker team in 2021 that turned out to be pretty good, if I remember correctly. I don't know if that's the bubble title winner or not, but it's right around there. He was an average efficiency player. The year before, he was well below efficiency at 50% effective field goal percentage. And then he goes to Washington for 4 years, and he averages 21, 22 points a game, and everyone decides that he's really good. And he's having like an unmitigated disaster of a playoff series. He literally had a 22 trillion game the other day. He had 22 minutes and 0.0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers, 0 points. And even in the 33 games he played for Milwaukee this year, he was kind of okay again, 14 points a game again. So like he was a 22 point a game scorer in Washington because the game determines every single night, guaranteed, that there's going to be 90 points scored and 45 rebounds. So it kind of goes both ways, honestly. That a bunch of players go play for terrible teams, put up really big numbers, and they're just irrelevant. And then there's players that someone like Keyonte is probably more inefficient because he's playing on a bad team without great players around him a lot of the year, and therefore he gets a burden on him and he plays less well. How has Hardy grown as a leader this year? Any moments or decisions that really stood out? This could be an entire show. Should be. I just think the biggest thing is that he held that group together. It was abundantly clear from the very first minute of the day of the season what we were doing. And he somehow got Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and John Collins to all stay engaged, be helpful, be good veterans. And he continually pushed the young guys at the right time and got them to the finish line with value. You very easily could have had mutiny. And I thought there were a few times during the season where it was close to mutiny. And there are some personalities on this team that are not the easiest to manage. That's not a criticism. That's just NBA players, frankly. Like every NBA team has that, I think. So I think that his growth is really an understanding of 82 games would be my thought. That would be my thought. Let's end on that. That was a great question. Thank you very much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back Monday. A lot of numbers and geeky stuff next week. I'm going to really work on my draft stuff this week. And I'll start watching players as well. Excited to be with you. Thank you very much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz today. Thank you. If you liked anything, 5-star review is greatly appreciated on any of the formats. And subscribe and follow if you're on YouTube. Hit that bell button. Meantime, we'll send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA. And make sure you check out Locked On NBA game night, every game, every night on Locked On NBA.